For at least the past year, I've been almost exclusively using low-profile keyboards. And at some point, I thought that was basically it for me. They're thin, lightweight, easy to move around, and my current daily keyboard, the Newfie Note 75, is incredibly quiet. But recently, I replaced it with this. This is the Keydous NJ80-CP V3 HE. It starts at $99.99 and for that price, you're getting a 75% Hall effect keyboard with adjustable actuation and rapid trigger, up to 8000 Hz polling rate over both wired and 2.4 GHz dongle, Bluetooth connection, a 4800 mAh battery, PBT keycaps, RGB lighting, and a programmable aluminum knob. Discount link below if you're interested. So even before we get into how it feels, there's already quite a lot of keyboard here for $100. Keydous sent this one over for review, and mine is the dark version with the Kyle Aurora magnetic switches. And somehow, after spending around a year getting very comfortable with low-profile keyboards, this has become my new everyday board. Not because I suddenly stopped liking low-profile keyboards. It just reminded me that sometimes I actually want to feel myself typing. And that's probably the biggest thing I lost when I switched almost completely to low-profile keyboards. My Note 75 is still great. It's extremely quiet, it barely takes up any space visually, and because it's so lightweight, I can just pick it up and move it whenever I need more room on my desk. Battery life has also been ridiculous for the way I use it. With the LEDs turned off, I can use it for around 2 weeks before the battery even becomes something I think about. So for work, that kind of keyboard makes a lot of sense. It just gets out of the way. But after using low-profile boards for so long, I started missing something. That satisfying feedback you get from a proper full-height keyboard. And with the NJ80, it was specifically these Aurora switches that brought that feeling back. They're not excessively sharp or hollow. There is a bit of dampening to the sound, so every key press still gives you that satisfying feedback without becoming irritating during a long typing session. But the sound isn't actually my favorite part. It's the way these switches feel. There's this strange sensation where my fingers almost feel like they're gliding from one key to another, and the closest comparison I can think of is a piano. There's enough resistance when I press down, and that every key feels intentional. But once I start typing, the switches feel incredibly smooth going down and coming back up. You need a little bit of force to get things moving, but because the initial actuation is so light, I don't have to hammer on the keyboard either. And for me, that balance matters a lot. Sometimes a really light switch can feel almost too sensitive. You rest your finger on a key and suddenly you're typing 3 letters you didn't mean to. On the other side, heavier switches can feel satisfying for the first few minutes, but become tiring once I've been writing or editing for hours. The Aurora switches sit somewhere in between for me. They give me enough resistance to feel controlled while still being light enough that my fingers are not doing unnecessary work. That's made this surprisingly comfortable for longer sessions. And because this is a Hall effect keyboard, you can also change how sensitive the switches are. You can adjust the actuation point depending on whether you want something deeper for normal typing or something much more sensitive for gaming. There is also rapid trigger, which lets a key reset based on its movement rather than having to return to a fixed reset point. Those are useful features, especially if you play competitive games. But that's not why this became my daily keyboard. I'm not sitting here thinking about 8000 Hz polling rate while answering emails. What I do notice is that it feels responsive. And when I switch over to gaming, the same light, smooth switches that I like for typing also work really well there. The other reason I've been able to move away from the Note 75 is simply because my desk has changed. No more huge monitor, and I've added speakers as well, and review on those coming soon. And mine being the dark version helps a lot because I really like how it looks with my current setup. It's definitely heavier and bulkier than the Note 75, so if portability were still one of my biggest priorities, the low-profile keyboard would win immediately. The same goes for noise. The NJ80 isn't obnoxiously loud, but if you specifically want something that almost disappears acoustically while you're working, this isn't replacing a quiet low-profile board. And I think that's why I don't see this as low-profile versus normal mechanical keyboards anymore. I've tested enough keyboards at this point to appreciate both. Sometimes I want thin, quiet, lightweight, and practical. Other times, I want something that makes typing feel satisfying again. And right now, that second one matters more to me. The Note 75 is still everything I like about low-profile keyboards. But the Keydous NJ80 reminded me why I like mechanical keyboards in the first place. The sound, the feedback, that slightly unnecessary satisfaction you get every time you press a key. And with the way my desk is set up now, this board is good enough that I don't feel like switching back. At least not yet. That's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel. And as always, until the next one, stay safe. This is my new outro.